Clinton team is pushing back, now demanding the release of all the information that is related to the FBI's investigation. Senior political correspondent Mike Emanuel live at the White Plains, New York, I should say, today. So, Mike, what's the mood at the Clinton team right now?
Martha, stressed, mad, worried. This was a political earthquake on an issue that has troubled the Clinton campaign from the very beginning. Hillary Clinton's private email server. They thought it was over this summer, and now it's back. In Florida yesterday, Clinton made reference to dealing with adversity.
No matter what is thrown our way, we are not going to back down. We are not going to give up. We're going to reject anyone who tries to drag us backwards. And we are going to remember that if God loves us all, we are commanded to try to love each other.
The strategy at this point seems to be putting massive pressure on FBI Director James Comey to at least give the appearance that they are not worried about what is in those emails. Martha?
So how big of a change would you say you're picking up on in terms of the way they felt about things last week and today, Mike?
Martha, it's been a stunning shift. There was talk at the highest levels of the campaign last week about overconfidence, but Hillary Clinton, the Democratic nominee, and her team were feeling great. They were reading the polls, and they felt like they were in a great spot. She brought back birthday cake to reporters at one point last week. She even took a question about after the election.
I certainly intend to reach out to Republicans and independents, the elected leadership of the Congress, which you mentioned. I'm going to be doing everything I can to reach out to people who didn't vote for me.
So today we'll be back on the plane heading for Battleground, Ohio to try to continue normal activities with this Clinton campaign uncertain of the impact of this FBI probe. Martha?
Mike, thanks.
You know, we are in a mess here.
We are.
You are basically new to politics. 9 days to go. As you look back at all of this, what is the thing that shocked you most?
How corrupt the system is. Honestly, how corrupt the system is. I'm a civilian, a plain civilian. We've never been in politics. And when you go from scandal to scandal to scandal, you look at the Clinton Foundation. It's one of the great Ponzi schemes in modern day history. You look at, you know, the Clintons making $250 million in the last 15 years, effectively, since leaving the Oval Office. You look at the email scandals. You look at Donna Brazile giving Hillary Clinton, you know, questions ahead of the debate. I mean, you go scandal to scandal, not to mention, obviously, all the scandals from, you know, Watergate and then, you know, Clinton getting impeached.
Well, and you know, selling the Lincoln bedroom and all of the file gates and everything. Everywhere they go, there's a scandal.
And honestly, it almost makes me lose a little, it makes me lose a lot of faith in the government. I mean, it's really, really sad. And you don't see it until you're front and center. And you know what, listen, I'm not a fan of people stealing emails. But the one thing I'll tell you that's come out of the WikiLeaks is actually shown how bad our system truly is. When you look at those Project Veritas videos, it's horrible. I mean, you have DNC operatives who are incredibly close to Robbie Mook, who have been to the White House 350 times, who are bragging about inciting riots that shut down a city. I mean, this is what these people do in politics.
You know, Eric,
it's horrible.
when they say that, you know, that your father is inciting violence, and then we find out that they're the ones who are inciting the violence, they talk out of both sides of their mouth, and then we find out from WikiLeaks that that's just not the case. So why were they so close? Why was Hillary beating your dad? And we're going to get to the numbers now, which are totally different. Yeah. What do you think Americans, are they not thinking?
No, I think so many of the polls are honestly not correct. I mean, so many of the polls, you had some of the polls that were out this week that were oversampling Democrats by 12%, and you're sitting there saying, give me a break. I mean, like, you know, Obama in his first term won by 5%, and you know, I mean, it doesn't even compare. So I don't know, but it's really, really amazing. I think people are finally seeing it. I think people are seeing how corrupt the system is. Having a front row seat to it, and again, as a civilian, I could never believe it. I could never imagine that people would stoop to the lows that they stoop to, you know, especially in these political campaigns. But they will do anything to maintain power because it lines their own pocket. It keeps them in the marble offices.
They're lining the pockets of the people around them as well. It's almost as though it's an organized criminal enterprise because this octopus of connections and this cesspool of corruption, they're all making money. But I want to move on because we could both go on forever on this. But The numbers now, what do they tell us?
Listen, we're doing great. We're doing absolutely great. You look at early voting in Florida. You look at early voting in Ohio. You look at early voting in North Carolina, Nevada. I mean, so many places. We are doing so well.
What do the exit polls tell you?
They're telling us a great story. I mean, Republicans are up tremendously. Democrats are down. Independents are bigger than ever this election cycle. Independents, as you know, break heavily toward us. People want something new. They don't want the same nonsense that they see every single day. I mean, Hillary, and I say this all the time, Hillary has been a politician longer than I've been alive. I mean, who feels comfortable that she can actually fix the mess that we're in as a country? We've got $20 trillion worth of debt. We've got broken educational systems. We have a broken military. We have a broken VA. Median income in this country hasn't gone up in 15 years. I talk about it all the time. Median income hasn't gone up in 15 years. You look at Obamacare. Obamacare might be the greatest lie in the history of politics. They said you're going to be able to keep your doctor, you're going to be able to keep your plan. The average family was going to save $2,500 a year. In Arizona, the premiums are up 116%.
It's crazy.
And you know what? There's no accountability. And that's the frustrating thing.
And there's no consequence.
In the real world, in private industry, there's accountability. When you say something and the reverse happens, you're held accountable. I mean, there's no accountability.
None. What about the numbers? 12 points last week, and now there's a 2-point spread in the ABC poll, and that's even before all this stuff came out with Jim Comey announcing they're reopening that investigation. Talk to me about that.
We're going to win. I mean, it's just that simple. People want their country back. People want a voice. People want to stop these corrupt politicians. Say what you will about my father. He's a man that can't be bribed. He's a man that can't be bought. He's a man who's put $100 million of his own money into this campaign. This is tough stuff, as you know. I mean, it's tough on him. It's tough on the whole family. I mean, it's tough stuff. This isn't an easy process. He's doing this. This country has given my father everything. It's given our family everything. That's why he's doing it, because he's seeing our country flushed down the tubes by incompetent politicians.
You know what impresses people the most? I have to tell you this, Eric. I look at you. I was in Florida with Lara, I don't know, Thursday, Friday, I've lost the days, and Donald Jr. and Ivanka and her husband, and you know, Ivanka has a baby in the middle of all of this. You kids are so committed. Your family is so connected. You are the epitome of what family is all about. Do you realize that if your dad wins, I mean, you know, I love your dad, and I'll leave that aside, but America's blown away by how close you are as a family.
Yeah, there's no question. And by the way, if no one else is going to fight for him, and I mean that, you know who's fighting for him? It's the American people. He doesn't have the special interests. He doesn't have these corporations coming out, Wall Street giving him hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. He doesn't have the super PACs. He doesn't have the entire mainstream media. You know who fights for him? His family. And you know who else fights for him? The American people. And by the way, together we're going to win this thing. There's no question we're going to win this thing. We have to take back our country. I mean, we have to win. Our country cannot survive another 4 years of the mess we're in. And you know the depressing thing to me, John? They can't even admit the problems that we have. They can't admit that $20 trillion is an almost unsurmountable amount of debt. They can't admit that our VA is in shambles. They can't admit that Obamacare failed. They can't admit that we have a depleted military. They can't admit that all of our jobs are going overseas. They don't even talk about these problems. In fact, they say that everything's wonderful. And it's so sad. You better recognize the problems, because we've got issues, and my father will do a great job fixing this nation.
All right, Eric Trump. I'm dying to ask you what you're going to do when this is over, but we don't have time.
Going back to work.
Eric Trump, so good to have you here. Thanks so much for being with us on Justice. The FBI's ability to get Huma Abedin, Hillary Clinton's closest advisor, confidant, and State Department Deputy Chief of Staff to sing can make or break this election. Right now, reports are the FBI is negotiating with Huma's lawyers, stemming from her joint computer with her pervert husband, disgraced ex-Congressman Anthony Weiner. Here we go again. We are 9 days away from an election that will redefine this nation. And as I said last night, we're on the precipice of yet another constitutional crisis because of the Clintons. This time involving an alleged pedophile, our nation's top secrets, and a couple of grifters from Arkansas. Now, you already know how I feel about all this from last night's Open. The American people are entitled to know, before we go to the voting booth, what it was that caused FBI Director Comey to reopen this case. He's got to tell us what it was that he discovered, what was so big that he violated Justice Department and FBI guidelines and alerted the nation. He cannot hide behind protocol now. The justice guidelines that don't let me talk rule doesn't work anymore. The we don't comment on pending cases doesn't work anymore. There are no ethical prohibitions now. You have been invited by the target and her surrogates to release the information that caused you to reopen a closed case. If there is an indictment, Hillary is now foreclosed from objecting to such disclosure. My bet is she knows you won't release anything, but thinks that she's calling your bluff. If she really wanted to know, all she has to do is sit down with Uma and ask her. The investigation, of course, is not then compromised, since documentary evidence, in this case emails, don't change. So it's time to do what you didn't do last year, a thorough, unbiased investigation, using all the tools available, search warrants, and impaneling a grand jury. No more Mother May I routine. You're the one who got yourself into this mess, and now the American people are in a bigger mess. In 2013, Uma signed a document under penalty of perjury when she left the State Department that she had turned over all classified materials and she was not retaining copies. It seems that the metadata on 650,000 emails suggests otherwise. Uma also swore under oath that she searched through all her devices for anything State Department related. And she had a chance to turn things over, and she didn't. So start your negotiation there, Mr. Director. You've got her in a corner, and it's time to throw some punches. Make your deal with Uma now. If you don't, and Hillary gets elected, no one will care. Hillary will do what she's always done. She'll be appalled at Uma. She'll say she didn't know, she didn't remember, she short-circuited, she had a brain clot, she had no idea. Look, the American people are already traumatized by the Clinton scandals, and we just can't take 4 more years of them. Word is that although Justice told your FBI guys to shut down the Clinton Foundation investigation, some of them kept it still going. The Justice Department is dirty, Jim, and you know it. Our Attorney General actually pled the fifth on the Iran ransom probe. And Loretta Lynch meeting with the spouse of a target, and then the target herself days later saying, I'm going to keep Loretta Lynch as my AG if I become president, is bribery, pure and simple. Jim, go back to your roots. You were once a great prosecutor. Don't let Washington ruin you, too. You need to send these Clintons back to where they came from. It's time for you to buck up, put on your big boy pants, and make a deal with Uma for the sake of this nation. You've got until Tuesday. And that's my open. Tell me what you think on my Facebook page or Twitter, #JudgeJanine.
It is such an important story. We're going to get straight to that Fox News alert. The FBI is under fire now. Senate Democratic leader, you see there, Harry Reid, who is retiring, accusing Director James Comey of breaking the law as Hillary Clinton's email investigation ramps up overnight.
Now, the federal government officially getting a search warrant now, the FBI, I should say, to search the laptop of Uma Abedin's husband, Anthony Weiner.
I think they had it in joint custody when they were married back in the day. Meanwhile, Fox News senior political correspondent Mike Emanuel is live in Westchester, New York, following the latest developments from the Clinton camp. Good morning to you, Michael.
Steve, Brian, Ainsley, good morning to you. This renewed FBI email probe has sent shockwaves through the Clinton campaign. The mood on the campaign plane has shifted from super confident to stunned and even angry. Huma Abedin did not travel with Hillary Clinton over the weekend to Battleground, Florida, which is highly unusual since Abedin is likely her closest aide. But the discovery of tens of thousands of her emails on her estranged husband's laptop has reignited this email controversy in the closing days of this campaign. Before that, last week we saw a very confident Democratic nominee and senior advisors. There wasn't just talk about winning the White House. They were talking about winning back the majority in the U.S. Senate and also sending more Democrats to the House of Representatives. Clinton faced a question on her campaign plane last week about whether she would meet with Donald Trump, Paul Ryan, and Mitch McConnell after the election. She said she wanted to be the president of everybody and that she wanted to reach out to those who didn't vote for her. That seemed to reflect super confidence that she was looking past November 8th, past the election. Now her campaign is dealing with this email mess months after they thought it was all done and settled, and her campaign manager is struggling to answer direct questions.
Has Secretary Clinton asked Huma Abedin what was on that laptop that she shared with her husband, Anthony Weiner?
She hasn't, because you just offered a hypothetical on the table. Let me offer you some hypotheticals that I've read in the press. I've heard a hypothetical that these emails had nothing to do with Hillary Clinton whatsoever, that she didn't send or receive any of them.
Today, my team is going to fly with the Clinton campaign to Battleground, Ohio. We will be there if she wants to take some questions. This as her aides try to find a way to pressure Director Comey to say more. But nobody knows exactly what the FBI has. It is clear the Clinton campaign is worried that this uncertainty is damaging in the final days of this campaign. Steve, Brian Ainsley.
Hey, Mike, do you really believe that what the campaign's been saying, that no one's spoken to Huma Abedin, that Hillary Clinton hasn't spoken to her, that John Podesta hasn't spoken to her? Does that even sound logical to you?
It does not sound logical when you consider how close she is to the candidate, how close she is to the inner circle of this Clinton team. And so you wonder whether the lawyers have said, you know, don't talk about any contact that has been underway. But it would seem illogical. And we know that Friday night they were together when the bombshell went off. And so it would seem to be, since they traveled together in the front compartment of the plane, that at some point the Democratic nominee would have looked over and said, what do they have?
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Mike, thank you very much.
With Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge working this story since it broke on Friday and again throughout the weekend. Catherine, at 9 o'clock this morning, where do we stand now?
Well, Bill, a government source confirms that the metadata on Anthony Weiner's computer has turned up positive hits for the Clinton emails. Metadata in this case is like the address on a letter. You know who it's to and from, but not the content. Meantime, an intelligence source told Fox late yesterday it is, quote, a virtual certainty that new records are on the computer and likely contain classified information. It was the sheer volume of data that drove the decision to reboot the email case. As New York FBI investigators began sifting through Weiner's computer records in early October, they found emails from Huma Abedin, which did not seem surprising since both Abedin and Weiner had access to the laptop. The New York FBI team then had to get new authorizations to do a deeper dive on the metadata, and that is when the hits linked to the Clinton account, and they were uncovered. Abedin told the FBI in April that she sent State Department emails, including ones like this from Clinton, to her personal Yahoo account, where it was easier to print. And in June, Abedin swore under oath in a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit that she looked through all her devices that could hold government emails. That claim is now in doubt. Meantime, last night on Special Report, the Republican chairman of the Benghazi Select Committee, which is the committee that first uncovered the private account, said the FBI director is not to blame for the box that he's in.
Jim Comey's not responsible for a single one of the facts at hand. He didn't tell her to use a private server. He didn't tell Huma not to turn over all of her devices. And God knows he didn't tell Anthony Weiner to send sexually explicit texts to allegedly underage people.
Given the sheer volume of records, law enforcement sources have told us consistently since the end of last week that they have no expectation that a thorough review can be complete before Election Day, Bill.
All right, so now, what are we learning about the Clinton Foundation investigation through all this?
Well, Bill, in January, Fox News first reported as part of its ongoing investigation of the Clinton emails that the email case itself had expanded to public corruption and the Clinton Foundation, and whether the intersection of the charity's work and government contracts amounted to pay for play. And over the weekend, a former FBI executive told CNN that despite what the Justice Department had told reporters, these investigations had not been shut down and that the FBI agents involved had continued to pursue these leads. Late yesterday, the Wall Street Journal reported that the Justice Department had been tapping the brakes on these cases And in the summer, it came to a head when Justice learned that the FBI agents were still pursuing public corruption leads. Justice Department leadership was, to say the least, beyond upset, Bill.